everybody, it's Stephen A. Smith, and everyone knows my feelings on Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kenner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
Exactly, Stephen A. He's been here for 10 years, and we're still trying to figure him out. The Justin Kenner Show, weekdays at 3 p.m., right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. You want hot takes?
The least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we are off and rolling here on a Friday. Welcome in the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. The Reds were off last night. They're back at it tonight. A very, very important series as the Reds take on an NL Central opponent. Taking on the Cardinals coming up later on tonight. We'll have pregame coverage coming at you at 7:45 with the first pitch set for 8:15. Reds and Cardinals coming up right here, Dayton's radio, home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. Again, we're going to open up with some Reds just because I think right now the Reds are in a little bit of a predicament. The rest of the league keeps allowing them to stay in this. The rest of the league, the National League in particular, keeps allowing them to hang around. Hell, the NL Central is allowing the Reds to hang around. We're going to talk about that to open up the show. The Browns, we're going to see them potentially trot out, well, Deshaun Watson this upcoming season. Deshaun Watson, of course, brought over years ago after things didn't work out with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, who finally we thought found a home in Tampa. Ron, I know you're going to appreciate this. Could this be the last year of Baker Mayfield in Tampa? And could we see, well, a reunion between the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield in 2027? I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. Why not? Why not, right? We'll get to that coming up around the corner as well. The Memorial, we'll have the leaderboard updates for you coming up here around the corner as well. A couple of weeks ago, I had the chance. I've been fortunate the last couple of years to have a chance to go and golf Muirfield. And I have no business being there. This job has allowed me some opportunities and memories that I'm going to, take with me whenever I do finally get a real job, whenever that day comes. But I'm not going to lie. When I watch Scotty Scheffler and when I watch some of the best golfers in the world struggle to just do simple things like chip it out of the rough, I feel pretty good. I feel better about my game. That rough is no joke. By the way, I don't know how many of you have golfed at Miami Valley recently. That rough, I golfed there the other day. That was humbling. Golfing, the rough at Muirfield, because, from the time, into, January into February, from the early going to spring, they don't touch that rough. That rough is not cut. That rough is not touched from the beginning of spring all the way up until the week of the Memorial. And when they give it a little trim. But that rough is no joke. But I'm not going to lie to you. Golfing at Miami Valley the other day, that rough was probably the worst rough I've ever had to hit out of. I mean, it was unbelievable. And, really good golfers I golf with in the Scarlet and Gray, Mike Dawson, Keith Byers, they do this little, the Scarlet and Gray competition amongst, their Buckeye Brotherhood. It's always Mike Dawson. It's always Keith Byers. At times Archie Griffin comes along and, I just sit back and, Mike Dawson, Byers argue like they're brothers. I mean, they literally, I'll never forget the time that those two were screaming at each other, arguing about the point system. And they were getting a little loud and getting a little carried away. And Archie Griffin just says, "Gentlemen." And both just stopped. That was the power of Archie Griffin. Archie Griffin, he's not the size of Keith Byers, but he got Keith Byers to be quiet. That's the power of Archie Griffin. But yeah, I have no business golfing with those guys in that group. But we golfed at Miami Valley the other day. My goodness, I couldn't get it out. You hit in the rough, you're toast. And that's what I was nonetheless. Where are we golfing this weekend? Let me know in the chat. I actually don't have any golf plans this weekend. I would like to make some though. Where are we golfing? Where are you guys golfing this weekend? Let me know in the chat. I'm curious what plans everyone has. This is a beautiful weekend coming up. And nonetheless, I got a chance to check out Browns Run last weekend. They redid the clubhouse. They now, like where hole 1 used to be, hole 1 is now on hole 10 now. So they've changed it all around. The front is now the back. The back's the front. I hadn't golfed there in over a year and a half. They redid that court. They redid that clubhouse, and there's a lot of changes out there. Actually, very impressed with that. If you haven't had a chance to golf out there, I suggest that. go and check out some of these different courses. That's the other thing I always get caught up in too. My buddies, are members at various clubs around town, and I'm like, I just ride the coattails of everybody. I follow, our friend Chicken Chuck from Lee's. I golf at Springfield a lot because of him. I golf at Miami Valley a lot because of KB. Right. I have a lot of friends that golf, that golf at various clubs throughout town. But I'm like, even if I was a member at a particular place around town, I don't even know if I would necessarily like that, having to golf at the same place every time. I mean, there is the perks of being a member somewhere, but I'm just saying, like, I would much rather get a chance to experience and go play different courses every weekend, which is what I do anyways. But I'm curious people's thoughts. What are some golf courses in the area that not a lot of people talk about? Let me know in the chat. I'd love to go check those out nonetheless. I'm a little chatty today. It's a Friday. It's been kind of weird around the building. A lot of people took off today. I was like, man, is there like a holiday weekend? Are we off on Monday? No, it was a ghost town today. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a regular work day, but it's beautiful outside. Excited to be with you here on a Friday. And I guess we got to do a sports talk show. So let's act like I know what the hell I'm doing here. Okay. All right. Reds back at it tonight. And the NL Central, I'm talking about how the National League allows the Reds to kind of stick in this and stay in it. How about this? Here's the NL Central standings, updated standings heading into tonight's games. The Reds are 6.5 games back. And by the way, we are live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. We are live on the Justin Kinner Show YouTube channel. Corporate is on me about getting those numbers up. So if you could do me a favor, all right. I'm not the most popular media member out there. I don't pretend to be, but they're on me about my numbers. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and go and hit that like and subscribe button on Facebook and YouTube, I would really appreciate that. You'd be doing me a favor for those of you who are interested in doing me a favor. But for those who are watching live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page and the Justin Kinner Show YouTube channel, you see the standings right there. The Reds sitting at 31-30, a game above 500, as they enter this huge series on the road against the Cardinals starting here tonight. They're 6.5 back of the division. And, I haven't really panicked yet about the fact that the Reds have only won 2 games in the division thus far. Right, they're 1-5 against the Pirates. They're 0-4 against the Cubs, and they're 1-1 against the Cardinals. They had 2 games in that 4-game series already postponed, and it looks like they're going to get this one in tonight. But man, you lose tonight, you have a below 500 record against every Central team that you've played this far, and the Reds have yet to even play the Brewers. The Reds have an important stretch coming up. They're going to play the Cardinals, obviously starting this weekend. They have another series with the Pirates coming up later on. They have a series with the Brewers, multiple series with the Brewers, and another series with the Cubs to close out the first half of the regular season. So I'm not panicking about the Central yet, just because I'm like, I think that's going to sort itself out. The Reds are going to have more than enough opportunities to dig themselves out of this. Yes, the Reds, 0-4 against the Cubs. Yes, the Reds are 1-5 against the Pirates, but you win these next couple of series against those teams. We're not talking about that as much, but it's quite a hole that they've dug themselves in nonetheless. The Brewers, though, when you look at the division, there's not a stronghold on the Central right now. The Reds are 31-30. They're in last place, 6.5 back. But I mean, the Brewers have lost back-to-back games. All right, they've lost back-to-back games. Now they have 37 wins, and the Brewers have low-key been the most consistent team in the Central the last couple of years. I mean, we start every season talking about the Cubs because it's the Cubs. All right. And then we turn our attention towards the Cardinals because traditionally the Cardinals have been a stand-up franchise. And honestly, this was supposed to be a bad year for the Cardinals. I mean, they're not in first right now, but they're in a playoff spot. They're 32-28. This is a team that was not supposed to be very good, and yet they're hanging around as well. So the Central's always interesting, but the one thing that is always constant, especially as of late, has been how good the Brewers have been, at least in the regular season. They have not been able to take that those really good regular seasons and roll it into an interesting playoff run by any means. But they're sitting atop the division right now, and the Reds have to find a way to kind of catch some fire a bit before they run into the Brewers coming up here in a few weeks. But you guys know my take on this. The Central will shake itself out. What I'm fascinated by, what I'm most interested in as we sit here right now is the NL wildcard picture. And that's what's up on the screen right now. Again, the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, the Justin Kinner Show YouTube channel. Check that out. There it is. The Reds, 31-30. They are a game and a half back of a playoff spot. Okay. And you look at, The Reds are in last place in the Central, which means they are looking up at the Cubs. They are looking up at the Cardinals. They're looking up at the Pirates, and they're looking up at the Brewers. Well, the Brewers aren't in the wild card scene right now because they're sitting atop the division. But this is what I mean by the Central will shake itself out. It will take care of itself, because the wild card is how I'm going to, really kind of tell just where the Reds are and how they stack up against everybody else. I mean, you have the Nationals, Reds, Cubs, Padres, Phillies, Diamondbacks, Cardinals, and Pirates, all within 2.5 games of one another. The Reds are a game and a half out of a playoff spot. The Nationals are 2.5 games out of a playoff spot, and they're 31-22. But the Pirates are sitting in the number one wild card spot right now with 34 wins. The Reds have 31 wins. They're last in their division. We feel like this team is horrible. Yesterday's show, we're talking about ESPN's Jeff Passan and everybody else saying how the Reds are going to be big-time sellers at the deadline. I'm like, I know that things don't feel right now. But if Ellie was healthy and Hunter Green was healthy and Caleb Ferguson, and Emilio Pagan and Rhett Lauder, if everyone was healthy and this team still stunk, I would be all on board on the panic thing. All right. We're going on with the panic that everyone else is. I'm just like, I'm looking at this 31-30. Not a very deep team, but when they're healthy, this Reds roster, pretty solid. There's not a great lineup, but I like some pieces in that lineup. Some of those pieces aren't there. Some of those pieces aren't contributing right now. But we knew the identity. The identity of this team last year was the pitching. And the reason everyone felt so confident about this team coming into this year was because of the pitching. And some of the pitching has been there. Chase Burns has been phenomenal, right? Chase Burns has been lights out. I would love to see a 5-game span when we finally get to the point where you could see Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Chase Burns, Rhett Lauder, Andrew Abbott. And then to use some of the arms that are being thrown into the rotation right now to start giving them some, extended innings for middle relief work and to start utilizing the depth. The Reds haven't been able to utilize their depth with the pitching because they've had to use some arms right away in the rotation. It's just that the Reds, this is not how they were supposed to operate this season, but these are the cards that they've been dealt. I'm not freaking out about the Reds. I mean, the fact that they are a game and a half out of a playoff spot. Game and a half out of a playoff spot. I mean, you look at it right now, the Reds are 31-30. The Cardinals have the second playoff spot in the wild card right now. They're 32-28. The Cardinals lose tonight. They're 32-29, and the Reds would be 32-30, and the Reds are a half game out of a playoff spot. Hell, by the time we do this show, in fact, I'm going to make a guarantee. Here's how big of a weekend this is. And I feel like the Reds are going to, I feel like a lot of times as well, they've kind of showed up, on the road. They've been better on the road than at home for whatever reason. All right. I'm going to say, the Reds they have a 500 record on the road. They're right at 500 at home, but they have a record above 500 on the road. I'm going to say the Reds take 2 or 3 from the Cardinals this weekend. And when we start the show on Monday, we're going to be talking about the Reds somehow, some way, sellers at the deadline. The sky is falling, blow it all up. This team will be sitting in a playoff spot as we sit here, inching along through June. Still a lot of the season left to be played. I get a lot of you get really annoyed because I get all excited and I start talking about the playoffs. That's what you're aiming for. That's what this is all about. It's about being in the playoff picture, because if they're not in the playoff picture, we're talking about how horrible it is and how this team needs to blow it all up. No one says, oh my gosh, it's only June, calm down. So why is it that when they're in a good spot, we're not allowed to enjoy it? Whatever. Look, this team's in a good spot and they shouldn't be. And a lot of it has to do with what's kind of going on around them. The Cubs, everyone's like, well, the Reds, I don't feel good about the Reds. Well, the Cubs, should you feel good about the Cubs? They have 2 more wins than the Reds. They're a game above the Reds in the standings right now. Do you feel good about the Cubs? What about the Padres? They have 1 more win than the Reds. Do you feel better about the Padres? What about the Phillies? They have 2 more wins than the Reds. They haven't been great. Do you feel better about them? The Diamondbacks, they're 5-5 in their last 10. Do you feel good and warm and fuzzy about them? What about the Cardinals? They have 1 more win than the Reds. And the Pirates. All right, the Pirates are interesting. The Pirates have the pitching. They're a healthier version of the Reds, but they still have their flaws as well. The bottom line is if you're going to say you don't have confidence in the Reds because you're not confident in X, Y, and Z, then it all kind of equals out because I'm not confident about any of those teams. I'm not confident about the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, the Padres, the Cubs. All those teams, based on what they've showed us to this point, have done enough wrong for everyone in baseball to say, I'm not sold on any of those. Well, 3 teams get those wild card spots, plus a division winner. 4 opportunities for the Reds to snatch a playoff spot. And I'm not convinced that any of these other teams are head and shoulders better. I don't care that the Cubs, swept the Reds, earlier in the month or last month. I don't care that the Pirates are 5-2 against the Reds or 5-1 against. I don't care about any of that. None of these teams to me are head and shoulders better than the Reds. No one has proven that to be the case yet. So we'll see what ultimately happens. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, we'll take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Reds and just why this series is so dang important. Not just this series, but the series of series, the stretch of series coming up. We'll talk about that. Plus, I want to get into my Baker Mayfield conversation. There's something weird happening in Tampa. Baker Mayfield could potentially be made available after this upcoming season. Is a reunion in Cleveland really that far-fetched? We'll talk about all of that and more when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
Everybody, it's Stephen A. Smith, and everyone knows my feelings on Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kinner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord. Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
Exactly, Stephen A. He's been here for 10 years, and we're still trying to figure him out. The Justin Kinner Show, weekdays at 3 p.m., right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, everybody, we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. 937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. We are Dayton's radio home for Reds baseball, and we'll have Reds baseball coming up for you later on tonight. The Reds were off last night. They're a game above 500, a game and a half out of a wild card spot. And, you know, they're 6.5 back, excuse me, in the division. So this is a huge series coming up for the Reds. You know, they have Brady Singer on the mound. Brady Singer has not been great this year, but again, a veteran pitcher and a veteran. This is a much, needed outing from a veteran pitcher here tonight on the road to kind of set the tone against this Cardinals team. The Reds have played the Cardinals already once this season in a 4-game series. They were only able to get 2 of those games in. 2 of the 4 were postponed, and the Reds and Cards split the other 2. So a huge opportunity for the Reds tonight to go back to a couple games above 500 and, get to within a half game of a playoff spot. Again, I keep talking about playoffs. I don't care. That's important to me because I have to use that bar to talk about, because so many of you are talking about how hopeless this team is and this team doesn't have a chance. And I'm like, even with as poor as this team has been, they're right there, and they're only going to continue to get healthier and potentially add at the deadline. We'll see what ultimately happens, but a big stretch for the Reds coming up, because as you see right here, and again, we are live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Look at the teams that the Reds are in the mix with. The Nationals, right? The Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, Pirates, all division teams. Well, take a look at what's coming up for the Reds schedule-wise. 3 very important series. All right, when you look at the standings in the wild card right now, the Cardinals are above the Reds at 32-28. The Diamondbacks are 33-29. Both those teams have 1 game, 2 games, 1 win, 2 wins more than the Reds on the season. Then there's the Padres, 32-29. The Reds are they're 1 game better than the Reds right now. Well, look at the 3 series coming up that the Reds are in. 3 at the Cardinals, 3 at San Diego, and then 3 at home against the Cincinnati Reds. A week from today, the Reds welcome in the Arizona Diamondbacks is a huge series. Every one of these series moving forward is huge. Those are the next 3 series that take us through well past the halfway point in the month of June, or get us to the halfway point for the month of June. But as far as the Reds and their schedule is concerned, those are the next 3. But the massive series that the Reds still have coming up to close out the first half of the season, after the Diamondback series, okay, you still have 2 series with Milwaukee. The first series of the season against Milwaukee will start on June 22nd. That's a home series. Then they'll have 3 at Pittsburgh right after that, and then 4 at Milwaukee after that. And then they'll have 3 against the Cubs to close out the first half. So the fact that they have 13 NL Central games remaining, okay, it's not good. They're 2-10 against the NL Central right now, but they have 13 Central games remaining between now and the end of the first half of the season with the All-Star break looming. So big opportunity. It starts tonight, and followed up by that Padres series again. You look at it right there. The Padres, they're a half game out. The Padres they're tumbling. All right. For a while, it was the Padres were really kind of pressing the Dodgers a bit for who was going to come out of the NL West. But right now, the Diamondbacks trail the Dodgers by 6.5 games. The Padres trail by 7. They've lost 5 straight. They're 1-9 in their last 10. All right. You look at the Diamondbacks. They're nothing special either. All right. The Reds, if we're going to sit here and say, well, the Diamondbacks are better, we feel like the Reds are just horrific right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10. The Diamondbacks, 5-5 in their last 10. The Padres, 1-9 in their last 10. And, oh, yeah, the Cardinals, by the way, who are ahead of the Reds in the city, they're 3-7 in their last 10. The Reds aren't playing great baseball right now, but they have opportunities against 3 teams right now, consecutive teams right now, that also aren't playing great baseball. The Reds have a chance to bounce back this weekend and into next week and to set up a huge series with the Diamondbacks next Friday at Great American Ballpark. I'm excited for it. We'll see what ultimately happens nonetheless. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. You can text or you can call or leave your opinions on what we're talking about in the chat below. I'll get to your responses coming up here in just a moment. But I want to switch gears here to the NFL. I thought this was interesting. Every NFL season, it drives me nuts because I get into these arguments with people. Everyone's like, well, Kenner, you were the biggest Baker Mayfield fan out there, and now you bury Baker Mayfield. I don't bury Baker Mayfield. I was very realistic of Baker Mayfield as a quarterback in Cleveland. And to be honest, a lot of you were as well. We all looked at a division that had Joe Burrow, who was, drafted and just was coming into his own. And it's like, man, you're in a division that has Joe Burrow, who is an emerging star, went to a Super Bowl in year 2. In a division that had Mike Tomlin's Pittsburgh Steelers, who just don't lose. And I know it's the same roster as last year. We'll see just how much of it was a Mike Tomlin effect, and we'll see if Mike McCarthy can come in and carry that or not. But the bottom line is, at the time, you have Mike Tomlin's Steelers, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, right? Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And then the Browns were sitting there with Baker Mayfield saying, man, Baker, everyone's like, yeah, but Baker came in and look how good he was for Cleveland. Yes, but good for Cleveland. The bar is so low in Cleveland that I could be considered good for Cleveland, but is Baker good enough for the Browns to ultimately ascend to where they want to be to compete with the Josh Allen's Bills and the Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs? And most importantly, the Joe Burrow Bengals, which they did, but that was more of a defensive matchup issue against the Bengals. And of course, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. If you are going to, the AFC with the quarterback class in the AFC, the Browns were staring at Baker Mayfield saying, man, based on Browns standards, you're almost damn near elite based on the Browns standard of quarterback. But based on what we want to ascend to, I don't know if it makes sense to extend Baker Mayfield. It basically locks us near the bottom. No matter what, no matter how good Baker is, he's not Joe Burrow. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Justin Herbert. It was like you started going down that list, and it's like, man, we're not even talking about, is he top 10 in the NFL? Is he even top 10 in the AFC alone at that time, right? So I understood the Browns being a little hesitant. At the time, 40 mil was a big number to give a quarterback. Now that's a steal if you get a quarterback for that number. But I remember everyone ripping me all the time saying, Kenner, can't wait for your Browns to give Baker Mayfield 40 mil a year. They're toast. And I kept saying I'd feel more comfortable if the Browns kind of went in that 32 to 35 mil range. I agreed with everyone. The 40 mil for Baker, you're not going to get the same contributions from your quarterback for 40 mil that what the Chiefs were getting for 45 mil. Josh Allen, once he got paid, you know what I mean? Like if you go look at once those quarterbacks started getting paid, the production and the winning that was provided by those was not the same as what Baker was providing for the Browns. So I understood that, and you guys understood it too, which is why I still laugh to this day when so many people say Cleveland had something so good with Baker and they blew it all up to go chase Deshaun Watson. Now, I get it because it has not worked and it did not work. And you have to fall on that sword. But if you go at the moment, like for instance, right now, the Bengals just went and got Dexter Lawrence. There's not anyone out there that thinks that was a dumb move. And I'm here to tell you, people rip the Browns because of the person of Deshaun Watson that they went after, but no one was ripping the Browns for going to get an elite quarterback because at the time he was viewed as that. But right now, I want to use this as an example. You Bengals fans are super stoked about going to get Dexter Lawrence. What if Dexter Lawrence just stinks? What if he's just no good moving forward? Are you still going to say that it was a bad move by the Bengals? Because Dexter Lawrence, up to this point right now, is the best, interior defensive lineman. One of the best, if not the best. One of the best, if not the best, interior defensive lineman in football. And the Bengals really needed that. And the Bengals give up a top 10 pick to go get that. I think that was smart. I think that was a great move. You needed interior defensive line help. You had a top 10 pick. It's a win-win. Of course, it makes sense. What I will not do, however, is if Dexter Lawrence does not pan out, I will not say, man, the Bengals are idiots for giving up that top 10 pick, because based on what we know now of Dexter Lawrence, this is a very smart move by the Bengals. If he doesn't work in Cincinnati and all of a sudden just forgets how to play football, we'll all be scratching our heads. And as much as I love to rip your team, you will not hear criticism from me at all. I think it was a genius move. Just like at the time for Cleveland, Deshaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL during his time in Houston, which is why at the time, I thought it was a good move, because what we knew about Deshaun Watson, the quarterback at that time, I mean, he was right up there with the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes of the world, and that's what you are supposed to want. Now, Cleveland, they trade for him. They give up a couple draft picks, a lot of draft capital, right? They mortgaged the future, gave him a fully guaranteed contract, and all of a sudden, Deshaun Watson doesn't know how to play football. And everyone now, when the season starts, because Baker Mayfield always comes out, gunslinging. He's a fun quarterback. I'm still a Baker Mayfield guy. Obviously, Baker's better than Deshaun now, but at the time, I don't think anyone would have told you that. There wasn't anyone out there that actually thought Baker Mayfield was better than Deshaun Watson at that time. Go pull anybody. Baker Mayfield was good for Cleveland. But if Cleveland had a chance to get a top 5 quarterback in the NFL like Deshaun Watson, who was right up there with the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's of the world and the Lamar Jacksons of the world, why no one would have said, oh, no, don't go get that quarterback that, the Saints are trying to get, the Steelers were trying to get, the Falcons were trying to get. Any team that needed a quarterback was knocking on the, kicking the tires on what would it, take to get that deal done, right? The Browns were the only ones in the NFL lining up to. There was a lot of teams who needed quarterbacks, and a lot of teams were lining up to get Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has not been good. To me, it does not change the fact that at the time it was still the right decision, because you don't know, you can't, you're making a move based on what that player has done to that point, hoping that they will do what they have done in the last couple of years moving forward for you. Same thing with Dexter Lawrence in Cincinnati. If all of a sudden he's just no good the next couple of years, it's like, not Cincinnati didn't make a bad decision. It just was a bad result. It was a smart decision. It was just a bad result. And I bring this up because Baker Mayfield is a significantly better quarterback now than what he was 3-4 years ago. And article came out earlier today from Jenna Lane, who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for ESPN. Baker Mayfield contract talks not anywhere close with the Buccaneers. Speaking publicly for the first time this offseason, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield said that contract extension talks are not anywhere close to what we were thinking, and that it's time to get something done long term. Now, the general manager for the Buccaneers has said multiple times this offseason that there isn't a specific timeline that the Bucs are working off of. Keep in mind, this is an interesting offseason. This is an interesting run for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because, Tampa has been pretty consistent offensively. They could pass the ball. They could run the ball. Solid defense. They're just an okay team. But, they have Emeka Egbuka, who was phenomenal last year. They were able to keep Chris Godwin Jr. They do lose Mike Evans, which is a problem. Offensive line getting Tristan Wirfs years ago, they have that, but it's like there seems to be a certain ceiling with this offense. They could run the football. They have good wide receivers, solid offensive line, solid defense, but there always seems to be a ceiling with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think the Buccaneers are sitting back looking at that saying, do we really marry Baker Mayfield for the next 3-4 years and just be average? We have a better quarterback situation than most. We're a 500 team. We're competitive. We're good. That's what you want. But, bad teams want to be good. Good teams want to be great. And great teams want to stay great. There's levels to this. And right now, Tampa, they're not a bad team trying to be good. They're a good team trying to be great. And so when you're a good team trying to be great, you evaluate what you have and you look at what you have. And they're looking at Baker Mayfield saying, I like you. You're safe, kind of. We're going to win games with you, but ultimately, eventually, GMs get fired, coaches get fired, and owners want something different. And you start looking at, well, what else can we improve at? You could always improve everywhere, right? But we all know the straw that stirs the drink. And Baker Mayfield, he's a good quarterback on a good team. He's a good quarterback on a good team that wants to be great, and I don't know if Baker Mayfield can be great. That's the interesting thing. So if the Buccaneers decide that they win 8 or 9 games this season, right? They only win 8 or 9 games this upcoming season. They could be sitting back saying, I don't want to try to keep this roster intact to be another 8, 9 wins. I mean, they're 10-7 in 2024, right? And last season. So it's just one of those where you look at, they were 9 wins the year before. So in 2025, they're 8-9, 8-9 last year. They were a 10-win team the year before. All right. In 2023, that first year, Tampa Bay, 9-8. You're an 8, 9, 10-win team, which is what I said Cleveland would be years ago if they kept Baker Mayfield. They'd be an 8, 9, 10-win team, which is good for Cleveland standards. But like I said, there's levels to this. Bad teams want to be good. And when the Browns were 0-16, the idea to get a quarterback to get them to an 8, 9, 10-win season consistently was awesome. And then you get there, and it's like, 9, 10 wins, that doesn't guarantee us anything. It gives us a shot. But now we're just good. We want to be great. And the Browns did not think Baker could help them be great. And while everyone rips the Browns for moving on from Baker Mayfield, you would be ripping the Browns for keeping Baker Mayfield. And that's Tampa right now. And if Tampa does decide that they're not, that they're going to, if they win 9, 10 games this year and get knocked out in the first round, they're probably not going to extend Baker Mayfield. We watched and now Sam Darnold does take the Seahawks to go on to win the Super Bowl. And Sam Darnold had a better season with the Vikings than any season we've ever seen from Baker Mayfield. And the Vikings still moved on from Sam Darnold. I could see the Bucs moving on from Baker Mayfield at the end of the season. And then it gets interesting. Because if the Browns aren't in a position to go get an Arch Manning, all right, or a Dante Moore, if Julian Sayin doesn't pan out the way everyone wants him to, it will be interesting to see what ultimately happens there. Because I'm kind of curious if Cleveland's not in a draft position to go get, because keep in mind that Rams draft pick, they have 2 first-rounders next year, but the Rams are predicted to get to a Super Bowl. And even if they get to the NFC Championship game, it's not like it's a super valuable first-round pick. You're going to be picking 28, 27 in that range. Maybe you're picking 30th. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Plus, you're going to have your draft pick. And I think Cleveland's going to win 7 games, 8. I think 7-9 is where the Browns could finish this season, depending on what they get from the quarterback position. Okay. So you're going to have 2 picks, 2 first-round picks outside of the top 10, maybe. So it's not like you could package both of those first-rounders to go get an Arch Manning. You're not going to be able to go look at the top of the draft and say, we'll give you our 12th pick and our 28th pick for Arch Manning. That no one's going to go for that. The Browns can look at Baker Mayfield and say, we're willing to invest into you. Come home, come back. We can use our draft picks to continue to add depth at offensive line, more pass catchers, and keep the depth on the defensive role. Keep the depth on defense rolling. The Baker Mayfield storyline's fascinating to me. And by the way, I don't think Baker Mayfield to Cleveland's the only storyline in the North. Aaron Rodgers is going to be out of Pittsburgh as well after this season. Baker Mayfield's time in the North, I could see Baker Mayfield ending up in Pittsburgh at some point when it's all said and done as well. I don't think we've seen the last of Baker Mayfield in the AFC North. I think he could either be a Brown or a Steeler next season if things don't go well in Tampa this year. And I don't mean go well as in, I don't think they could be a 9 or a 10-win team, and that's counted as going well. They need to be a 12-win team, division champion, win a playoff game or 2. It's one that, you lose to the Rams in the NFC Championship game, fine, but like you look at the NFC, I don't think there's anything that Baker could do to make anyone feel warm and fuzzy to give him a long-term extension. I mean, are they better than Carolina? Carolina won it last year, won the division. Carolina's solid, both ends of the ball. I'm not taking Tampa over Philadelphia. I'm not taking them over Dallas. I'd be curious to see how much better the Giants are this year. The Commanders have Jaden Daniels back. I'm not taking Tampa over Detroit or Green Bay. Minnesota with Kyler Murray, how good are they going to be? In Chicago? I mean, that's 7 teams right there that I don't know that I would take Tampa over any of those teams. And then, you have the Niners. You have the Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champions. You have the Rams. The NFC's stacked. And I don't think that the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield are stacked enough to go at those teams. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Hey everybody, it's Stephen A. Smith, and everyone knows my feelings on Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kenner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
Exactly, Stephen A. He's been here for 10 years, and we're still trying to figure him out. The Justin Kinner Show, weekdays at 3 p.m., right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, everybody, we are back. Happy Friday. It's the Justin Kinner Show. 937-518-1410. That's the number that you can call or text to get in on the conversation. Make sure you tune into next week's show. Excited for next week's show. We got loaded up with some more tickets that we're going to be giving away. How about Lil Wayne coming to Columbus in July? We're going to be giving away some Lil Wayne tickets next week. Also, we have plenty of tickets to the Dayton Air Show. I'm excited about the Dayton Air Show. I always look forward to that every year. A big fan of the Blue Angels, me and my wife and my best friend and big group of us. We always go to Pensacola every year. And my favorite thing about that trip is, going out on the pier or just going out on the roof, sitting in the pool and watching when the Blue Angels fly back. We've gone out to their practice runs. We've taken the boat out to go out there and watch them do their practice shows as well. Big fan of that. Now, to be honest, I'm going to love watching it here in Dayton, but it's not as good as watching it, out Pensacola, but I'm excited for it to come to Dayton nonetheless. And of course, it's going to be a big, a bigger deal than most years just because, it's part of, America's 250th birthday. So make sure if you don't want to just rely on winning tickets to go, you want to get your tickets, make sure you get those for that show coming up here in just a few weeks. So I'm Justin Kinner again. We welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show. Talking about Baker Mayfield in Tampa. Thought it was just interesting that came out because Baker Mayfield basically came out as well and said that, that you have the GM of the Buccaneers has come out and said that there's really no timetable on when they would like to get a long-term deal done. And Baker Mayfield saying, hey, he doesn't want this to be a distraction. So they haven't. So now, like we saw this with Jamar Chase did this a few years ago, as well. And actually, no, I'm sorry. It was the opposite. We saw this with Jamar Chase's contract, but it was done the opposite way. Jamar Chase wanted a contract done, and the Bengals, once the season starts, they don't negotiate contracts during the season because it's a distraction. Now you have the, upper management of the Buccaneers coming out and saying that, there is not a specific timeline that the Bucs are working off of when it comes to getting his long-term deal done. Baker Mayfield's agent and his team said they would like it. They provided one saying by training camp, which will open in late July. We're sitting here, it's June 5th. So you have just about a month and some change to go for the Bucs to get a long-term deal done with Baker Mayfield. You have him putting a hard deadline on it, and the Buccaneers front office saying, there's really no timeline that they're operating off of, which to me says everything. To me, it says everything. Like if you have Joe Burrow you're trying to get that done. If you have Lamar Jackson, well, technically I know the Ravens did drag their feet, but like when you have a franchise quarterback, there's a timeline that you're operating off of. You're trying to do everything in your power to get a deal done. The Bucs are not operating that way. They're basically saying, we need to see something that goes beyond we get, because Baker has been an MVP candidate a month, 2 months into the season, every year that he's been in Tampa. The problem is the Baker that you get in the last couple of months is not the same Baker that you get in the first month, in September and October. And I think that's why you have the front office of the Buccaneers coming out and saying that we're not really operating on any timeline. And I think that they're lying. I think that the timeline that they're operating off of, I think the timeline is we kind of want to see where we're at in December and January. And Baker, I understand why he wants a deal done, but Baker, you've been very good. You have not been great. And there's a lot of teams that desperately need a quarterback like Baker Mayfield. My team's one of them. My team had Baker, let him go. I still think there's a chance that Cleveland and Baker could reunite next offseason. It would not surprise me at all. Baker Mayfield didn't have a bad relationship with team ownership. As far as the ownership having a bad, problem with him, he was mad about, of course, the Deshaun Watson thing. But keep in mind Baker Mayfield's ego. If Baker Mayfield can come back to Cleveland and save the day again, can you imagine that? Coming back to Cleveland, and he's going to have the running game. He's going to have young running backs, young wide receivers. Deshaun's money will be off the books, or at least there'll be one more year of that, which means Cleveland will be in, you don't have Myles Garrett's big contract on there anymore either, which means Cleveland could spend a good chunk of dollars to get Baker Mayfield to return to Cleveland. And again, as I said, well, Kenner, you're saying that, he's not good enough to stay in Tampa, but good enough to go to Cleveland. Remember, there's layers to this, as I said. Good teams want a Baker Mayfield to, bad to average teams want a Baker Mayfield to make them good. Good teams want a Josh Allen and a Joe Burrow to make them great. The Browns are a average to, they're a bad to average team on a good day. And they're looking for a quarterback to make them good. Now they want to be elite, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to find even quarterbacks to make them. So yes, there is value of Baker Mayfield in Cleveland right off the bat. And, with them not in their wide receivers, all their money, if Concepcion pans out and Boston pans out and Judkins we know is good. All right. And, you have, of course, Harold Fannin Jr. at tight end. And they drafted another tight end in this draft. And they're going to put money, obviously, into the defense, of course, again. But, this is a young offense. I could see the Browns going after Baker Mayfield. Their first priority is hopefully Shador pans out and is the guy. I don't know if he is. We know Deshaun's not. But maybe he's good enough to win them some games. Who knows? The number one thing is they would love to be in a position to get Arch Manning. I just don't think any of they have a lot of draft capital. I don't think they have any sexy picks. I think Cleveland, a bad year for Cleveland is going to be a 6-win team. I think they're going to be another 5, 6, 7-win team this year. And that I think their ceiling could be a 9-win team. Okay. Which means 5 or 6 wins, you're still going to be picking, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's an okay, solid one. It's not the sexiest pick. And then the Rams pick you'll be picking at the back end of the first round. So you're going to have 2 firsts. But I don't think that, let's say you're picking at number 9 and you're picking at 28. I don't think you could look at a team I don't think you could look at any team picking at the top of the draft and saying, hey, we'll give you our 9, 28, and a 2 and a 3 for Arch Manning. I don't think they're doing that. So I think that at the end of the day, Cleveland's going to be in a position to get Baker next year, or Pittsburgh. I just don't see Tampa. I think Tampa, they're a little bit, they're an old roster. Their defense has a lot of older players on it. I think Tampa could be hitting the reset button next year. I think they're going to win 8, 9 games this year, be in contention to win the division. They may win the division with 8 or 9 wins, but again, it's not going to be good enough, right? So it's just going to be one of those things where you got to keep an eye on that. Because you could win a bad division and get ousted early in the playoffs. And I don't think that the Buccaneers have interest in marrying Baker long-term. I think he can go to Cleveland. I think he can go to Pittsburgh. And I honestly see Pittsburgh making more sense than Cleveland, because I think Cleveland would rather start winning with a younger quarterback. But we'll see what ultimately happens. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show here on a Friday. 937-518-1410. You can text or call. Ron, I know you're fired up about all this nonetheless. But we talked about the Reds earlier. The Cincinnati Reds back at it tonight with the chance, to not just get back in the W category, but to start stacking some wins in the division. This is the second series against the Cardinals. They had a series against the Cardinals, in May. It was a 4-game series. 2 of the 4 got rained out and postponed, and the Reds and Cards split the other 2 games. Reds, a win tonight would put them back within a half game, maybe in a playoff spot in the wild card, and obviously would close the gap between them and some of the other teams in the division, which is important. But we also talked about in the last part of the show, the teams coming up. Look at the schedule for the Reds coming up. 3 against the Cardinals, 3 at San Diego, and then 3, of course, at home against Arizona. The reason that's important, look at those wild card standings. The Reds, 31-30. They're looking up at the Padres, who are 32-29. They're looking up at the Diamondbacks, who are 33-29. And everyone talks about those teams like they're just so much better than the Reds, but yet there they are, 33-win Diamondback team, 32-win Padres team, and there's the Reds with 31, maybe 32 wins after tonight. The Reds just got to hang around, get Ellie, get Hunter Green back. Amelia Pagan will be back in a month, and hopefully Amelia Pagan returns to what he was last year and not what he was to start. We'll see what happens. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here. Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Reds Cards tonight, 8:15 the first pitch, and we'll have pregame coverage for you, 7:45, 1410 ESPN Radio.